Right, welcome to the third set of videos in our economics course. There's going to be 4 videos today, and we're actually looking at elasticity. We're going to be exploring this concept. We're actually going to be looking at how it relates to price, and in this first video we're actually looking at the price elasticity of demand. Now it may be you actually need to watch this video several times to actually make sure you understand the concepts before moving on. And a number of students have actually said to me they find it useful to print off the PowerPoint slides, and if you print them off 3 on a page, it actually provides a notes area where you can actually write notes. And then people tend to find that actually if they listen to or watch the video at the same time, they can actually write notes down, and they find that helps things a lot easier. Okay, so let's start off with things we're all familiar with. We've discussed the surplus, and we've discussed shortage, and we've discussed supply and demand, and the two curves and how they get together to reach equilibrium. And we've got this here on our chart, and you can see here that the red curve shows the supply and the blue curve the demand. So if we look at the red curve, the supply, you can see that when there's a high price, lots of people are prepared to supply that product. Suppliers are prepared to produce more, but actually when it goes down to a much lower price, there's less people who are prepared to do that. And similarly with our demand, if the item is expensive, then the quantity sold will not be an awful lot, but actually as the price comes down, our demand gets bigger and bigger, and where the two curves meet, we get to the equilibrium. And you can see here that we have a surplus. If there's supply has produced more as actually demanded, we have a surplus, and equally if there's not enough being produced, then we have a shortage. So that's the surplus and the shortage. If we look again at this whole operation of the price mechanism, so as previously discussed, the price mechanism, it works to correct the instances of these surpluses and shortages. Now you can see from the yellow curve, which is labelled up as S1, so if you remember how we label things, S is the supply, 0 is the first curve, and 1 is the next one along. And you can see there's been a clear shift to the right. Now at the original price, P0, we can see that suppliers are willing to supply more of the product from the Q0, the quantity, to well in excess of this. Now we actually show in this here we have an instance of a surplus, so there's too much supply, and the price mechanism works in this instance to reduce the price of the product, and this therefore brings the price down. So if you remember, that has a twin effect of increasing the quantity demanded by consumers and cooling some of the demand by the suppliers. So the price is now reduced to P1. There's a fall in price, but there's an increase in the quantity demanded. So as you can see here from the chart, we have reached a new equilibrium. So the supply is increased, the price decreased, and the quantity demanded increases. This is the price mechanism in action. Just to go over to recap on some of the things we already know, that as price rises, demand falls, and consumers choose to buy less of a product or perhaps purchase a different one. As the supply increases, by the producers who are willing to supply at that price. It's a higher price, more people are prepared to supply at that price. Equally, we know that as price falls, the reverse happens. So demand increases, consumers want to buy more of a particular product, but then supply falls, and suppliers want to produce less of the product. And the price mechanism operates within a market to reach a price at which demand and supply are equal, otherwise known as reaching the equilibrium. And we see shifts in other curves, and the price mechanism kicks in to correct the surpluses or shortages. So that's a recap over the past. So today's question for you: by how much does the quantity demanded change as the prices change? So how much does the quantity demanded change as the prices change? A couple of examples. So government taxes on the supply of gas raise the price, or the import duties affecting the price of champagne? Now we can answer these questions by considering price elasticity of demand, often known as PED, P-E-D for short. But the big question is, how much is the quantity demanded going to rise or fall for a particular increase or decrease in the price? So we answer this question by actually considering the price elasticity of demand. If we look at these three demand curves here for three different products, now they all have very similar characteristics. The price increases and the demand falls. So if we look first of all at the green or the yellow curve, we can see that as the price increases, the quantity demanded falls at a fairly quick rate. If we consider the blue curve in the middle, the rate of the quantity demanded falls still, but it falls at a much lesser rate. And then with the red curve, although demand reduces, this is actually fairly minimal, and there needs to be a really substantial change to the price to affect the quantity demanded. If we consider this chart, the demand, or the blue curve, to see how it's affected or changed by the demand and quantity. So in this instance, with a given change in price, we can see from Q0, that's the original quantity, and Q1, the first change, that the change in price can actually make a fairly sizable change. So the quantity demanded goes up by a fairly large amount. If we look at the second one, in this example the demand curve shown in blue is much steeper. So the same change in price results in a much smaller change in the quantity demanded. Finally, if we look at this third example, the demand curve in blue is very steep, and therefore a very small change in quantity brings a similar change in price. So I hope you're now getting the idea of the characteristics of this market. With this particular product, it would take a much larger increase in the price to generate the same change in quantity. So we need to look at how we can interpret the price elasticity of demand, and this is something we'll be considering in class next week. So the price elasticity of demand is a ratio. It's the percentage change in the quantity demanded to the percentage change in the price. Now usually we ignore the fact that it's usually a negative number, and we just consider the number as the absolute value. So the number is always negative, but we do not generally show the minus sign. If PED equals 0, then the quantity demanded does not change with the price. So this is always the same, and the curve would look vertical. There's no change in quantity demanded as the price increases. If PED is smaller than 1, then the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price, and it's known as inelastic. So let's say, for example, if the price goes up by, say, 10%, the demand would change by less than 10%. It's called an inelastic product, or a price inelastic product. If PED equals 1, then the percentage change in quantity demanded is the same as the percentage change in the price, sometimes known as unit elasticity. So the percentage demanded in the quantity demanded is the percentage change in the price. So, as an example, if the price increases by 10%, then the demand falls by 10%. And this is referred to as unit elasticity. However, if PED is greater than 1, then the percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in the price. It's an elastic demand. In this case, the percentage change in the quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in the price. So, if the price increases by 10%, it will have a demand fall of less than 10%. So it's referred to as an elastic product or a price elastic product. So you should hopefully have realised now this is really an area that it's really important that you can understand if you run a business, because you need to know how the impact of a change in price to your product will affect demand. So for example, if you put your prices up by 5%, how much would it affect your product demand, your sales? Yes, you know it'll fall, and you'll sell fewer products, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make less money. But you need to pay attention to what the likely change in the quantity is going to be. So it's really important you understand this area, this price elasticity of demand, and there will be exercises around it in class, but you may actually want to watch this video a couple of times beforehand. So to summarise this, the more elastic a product is, the more the quantity demanded changes for a given price change. And you can actually think about this as the price being sensitive to a change in price. It's more elastic and it's more sensitive to a price change. The less elastic a product is, then the less the quantity demanded changes with a given price change. So we can think about the price being less sensitive to a change in price, and the quantity demanded changes less by a given price. So watch the other 3 videos. You may need to watch them a couple of times, and we'll be doing some exercises about this in class next week.